I do not believe he's going to debate Oz. I think they're going to play. They're going to say they're going to debate, and then they're going to play games at the last minute. I think he knows that a 1 hour debate, that the people of Pennsylvania would see it and say, this is reckless.
It would end his political race, I believe. The only thing that he has in his favor might be that the bar is so low that if he just goes out and doesn't completely fall flat on his face. But Buck, I honestly don't know if he has the stamina and the health capacity to stand on a stage underneath bright lights and talk for 2 hours.
Tight Senate race between Dr. Oz and Fetterman. And it's fascinating because it really shouldn't be close at all. If people were making a decision, a decision based upon a candidate's ability to just do the kinds of analysis, thinking, reasoning, communication necessary to be an effective senator, Fetterman can't do those things. It is increasingly obvious, it is increasingly the case that Fetterman is somebody who needs to take time to focus on his health. We played a clip for you, I think it was last week. Here is yet another moment where Fetterman is speaking to people, and no one can pretend, at least with any honesty, that this is normal.
It's such the most important race for the Senate here for 22. We have to replace Pat Toomey. Oh, no. Yeah. Senator Toomey was not very nice to me. Pat Toomey is a miracle.
How much more of this you think, Clay, we are subjected to? First of all, I do not believe he's going to debate Oz. I think they're going to play. They're going to say they're going to debate, and then they're going to play games at the last minute. I think he knows that a 1 hour debate, that the people of Pennsylvania would see it and say, this is reckless.
It would end his political race, I believe. The only thing that he has in his favor might be that the bar is so low that if he just goes out and doesn't completely fall flat on his face. But Buck, I honestly don't know if he has the stamina and the health capacity to stand on a stage underneath bright lights and talk for 2 hours. I mean, I'm not saying this. It's unfortunate for anybody out there who has had a family member who has had a stroke, who has had a health condition of this severity. To have to deal with it is incredibly difficult. But it is reckless for them to be arguing that this guy is healthy enough to be a United States senator when he can't even stand on a stage and talk for barely 5 or 6 minutes at a time.
I just saw there's a Franklin and Marshall College Center for Opinion Research poll that has Oz down 13 points to Fetterman. There's no way. There's just no way that's actually going. I mean, like, this is what I mean about the polling, and this is the land of make-believe now.
Yeah, and look, I mean, they're going to try to tamp down Dr. Oz's turnout because there was a brutal Republican primary here. But this guy can't speak, and he almost died in May. And frankly, I don't know if he's going to be healthy enough to serve a term at all, much less survive one. It's awful. I hope he gets well. But he should have to drop out of this race, and certainly he should have to debate beyond the shadow of a doubt.
I think everybody, certainly all the residents of the state of Pennsylvania, should be familiar with that when John Fetterman, back in 2013, was the mayor of Braddock, a suburb of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, he said that he heard what he thought was gunfire. There was no gunfire. He saw a man running away. The man was jogging, just going out for a jog. The man was black. He had done nothing wrong. And then the mayor of Braddock, John Fetterman, pulled a gun on him. And according to this African-American fellow who had done nothing other than going jogging. And these are all the facts of this are not in dispute. He claims that Fetterman pointed a gun at him and held him there, effectively doing a citizen's arrest. This is a news report from back in 2013 on this.
And I heard approximately a dozen or more what clearly sounded like assault rifle gunshots go off.
Mayor John Fetterman says he rushed his son inside, called 911, and took off in his truck after a masked man in black he saw running. But Chris Mayeras, the man Fetterman confronted, turns out to be an innocent jogger who police say had no weapon.
There wasn't any assault rifle shots. It was bottle rockets behind the library.
Mayor Fetterman did have a weapon.
A 20 gauge shotgun under the back seat of my truck, which I pulled out and I showed to just say, look, we're going to wait here and we're going to get this all sorted out when the police arrive.
Mayeras and the mayor tell very different stories. He says Fetterman
followed me into North Braddock and pulled a shotgun and aimed it at my chest.
Did you point the shotgun at him?
No, I did not. I pointed it, way so that he would see that I was armed, but I did not point it at him. In fact, I didn't even have a round chambered or remove the safety at that point.
For both men, it was frightening. North Braddock's police chief says his officers tell him the shotgun incident was over when they arrived. Mayeras says that's not true. The police tried to laugh it off.
I mean, there's a mayor with a shotgun and 6 other cops surrounded me. What else can I do but this?
I believe I did the right thing, but I may have broken the law during the course of it. And, I'm certainly not above the law if I did. But what I did in a split second and out of concern as the father and the mayor.
He's trying to make it like it's okay. He's trying to justify what he did. I mean, you're the mayor of Braddock in North Braddock with a shotgun.
Okay, Clay, there's so much here. Just
This is a big deal. Yeah.
First of all, there are laws. I'd have to check in Pennsylvania, but against brandishing, you can't just pull out a gun and point at somebody and say, hey, I heard something I don't like, so I'm going to hold you here, right? He didn't. It's not like this guy had a gun, was firing a gun. He just heard noises. Think about this. He heard noises that were not even gunfire. Apparently this guy doesn't know the difference. He heard bottle rockets going off, found the nearest guy that he thought was suspicious, who happened to be black, pointed a shotgun at him. Nothing, there was no need for any of this. How is this? Can you imagine a Republican pick the nearest black guy jogging to point a gun at and effectively detain him for no reason whatsoever? And this wasn't a bigger issue at the time. Never mind now. I mean, it's crazy to me.
Yeah, look, couple of things. He got in his car, his truck, and chased this random jogger down and held him under gunpoint until authorities arrived. This sounds, Buck, like what happened down in Georgia that turned into such a calamity.
With the murder of Ahmaud, you're talking about the murder of Ahmaud Arbery.
That's right. That's basically what these guys did, is what Fetterman did, except that situation turned violent because they shot the Ahmaud Arbery because they alleged that he resisted their citizen's arrest. But they also hopped in a truck, armed gunmen, chased down this guy who claims that he was a jogger. And this is essentially the same thing that Fetterman did, except this guy didn't fight back to the extent that you believe that he fought back at all. But this was a major flashpoint all over Georgia. These guys are in prison for life. And John Fetterman, who is the Democrat, let's just break this down further, Buck. You're talking about a guy who is a Bernie Sanders clone in terms of the politics that he supports, who chased down a black guy who just happened to be jogging in the neighborhood because he thought he heard gunshots and immediately assumed that the black guy was responsible for it. And then also had a stroke and cannot talk effectively, certainly, and is not recovered. John Fetterman is the worst nominee for Senate in many of our lives that is being put forward as the favorite and the guy who is going to theoretically replace the seat held by a sitting Republican senator right now. It's Dr. Oz against Fetterman, and Fetterman is just imagine if this was a Republican candidate who had done this. Now, I believe Dr. Oz is running ads pointing out this left-wing Bernie Sanders clone may also be racist, because that's, let's be honest, a pretty racist thing to do.
So also, just so everyone's clear, Fetterman's
just
story
based
on
the
this,
facts we all agree with.
Fetterman's story on this has changed a number of times over the years.
Of course,
he claims that he couldn't tell the guy was black. I would be, of course, because he's trying to nullify any allegations of a racial bias in essentially.
Right.
I hear, meaning Fetterman hears what sounds to him like gunfire. So then he goes and drives after and chases down and holds at. I mean, this whole thing about I just had a gun and I said we're just going to figure this out. He didn't tap him on the shoulder and say, "Excuse me, fellow citizen, can we wait here peacefully to figure out what's going on with the help of law enforcement?"
Do you believe also there's no way he didn't point the gun at him?
Of course, that's what I'm saying. Of course he pointed the gun at him. There's no way that, the whole point of going to get the firearm is being, look, if he had seen a felony in progress and this guy was clearly the guy, that's a different situation. Now he's stepping in.
Still a super aggressive thing to do, to hop in your car and chase him. Now, if he had seen like a violent felony and he knew that a guy had committed a murder or something, that's different. He just heard gunfire, according to his own story, and just hopped in a car and pulled over at gunpoint the guy running closest to him.
When you're doing something like this, you are fully responsible. And anybody who's a concealed carry permit holder knows, this is such a part of defensive handgun or any weapons training you get. I'm sorry doesn't cut it. If somebody runs out of a store and you say, "Oh, I thought that they were the person holding up the store," and you shoot the wrong person, you're fully liable for this, right? I mean, you better be damn sure if you're going to use lethal force that you know what you're doing. Now, granted, he didn't use any force here, so obviously that's a huge distinction, an important distinction, but it does go to the mindset here. He grabbed a gun, he went after the wrong person. And Clay, he said that he thought it was assault weapons fire. He said that. I mean, we heard the audio of that. This guy didn't have? I mean, he's out jogging. He clearly. Yeah. Where's he hiding this AR-15 that Fetterman thinks that he heard? Why did he think it was this guy? I think that's the big question. I mean, if you hear gunfire and you see a guy with a gun, it's a pretty good indicator of I think it's probably this guy. He didn't believe that he ever had a gun, so why? It doesn't make any sense. It goes to the judgment.
He grilled over this too right now, running for Senate in Pennsylvania. Wouldn't this be something that you would think the media would be all over if he weren't a Democrat?
Well, the Democrats, Connor Lamb and the other, I forget who the other Democrat was, running against Fetterman in the primary. They made a big deal of this, and I think they were right to. It's so interesting, though. Media hasn't really spent a lot of time focused on this one. I think we all know why. What a shockingly weak candidate. I mean, you have this bizarre Bernie Sanders-esque in his policies. I mean, the thing is, he's not a law and order guy. He's actually a open up the prisons and defund police guy, or at least he has been in the past, who pulls guns out on random people. In this case, just happens to be a black guy. And everyone thinks that he's going to be a good senator for what reason?
He didn't have a job in his 30s and 40s, Buck. His family paid for him to live. He bought his house from his sister for $1. He just had a stroke and is lucky to be alive. He's a Bernie Sanders supporter, and he may be a racist pursuer of a random black jogger. And that's why I say he is the worst nominee for a major political party in a Senate race in frankly, the 21st century, not just this cycle.
I mean, you just also on pure intellectual horsepower and health reasons, Oz is just a clearly better choice than Fetterman. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, he's healthy. His intellectual faculties are all functioning properly right now, and he's a smart guy who's been very, very successful even beyond being an MD and all the rest of it. Fetterman wears slumpy sweatshirts and looks like a WWE character, and people think that means that he's like a working class guy. I think the whole thing is condescending, honestly.
No doubt. I agree with you. I think it's totally condescending. But if you're, let's say, a black guy in Philadelphia or Pittsburgh, one of the urban centers of Pennsylvania, why in the world are you going to be motivated to go vote for John Fetterman to be your next senator? The dude who chased down a black dude and pulled a gun on him because he thought he looked suspicious after he misheard what he
and
believed
by the
was
way, we
gunfire.
heard from the guy who, one, said that he pointed the gun at my chest. I believe him.
Yes.
And two, he's upset, and rightly so. I mean, imagine for everybody out there, you are literally jogging, minding your, and remember, there's no dispute. This guy did absolutely nothing wrong. He was just a jogger. Everyone agrees, just jogging. You're a jogger, and some random loon chases you down and points a shotgun at your chest and says, you're going to stay here till the authorities arrive. I would be very pissed off about that.
Yeah. And I'm curious where that guy is now if he's talking to the media, because that story goes to the essence of who John Fetterman is. He tries to claim that he's a hoodie-wearing Bernie Sanders clone. Maybe he is, but when he thought that there was danger, he immediately expected a black guy did it and pointed a gun. And even the argument, like, he should get grilled on this. So you had a gun in your arms. He claims you were pointing it at him. Where were you actually pointing it if you weren't pointing it at him? What would be the point of having the gun if you weren't threatening, like you might shoot him? And
this is like saying if you're in an interrogation,
would he have shot him?
Yeah, if you're in an interrogation, I didn't point the gun at him. I just put the loaded handgun on the table in front of the front of the suspect, just to let him know. Yeah, that's a threat. Like, we all understand. When you chase somebody down in a car.
He's got the gun in his hands. I mean, he had to have been pointing it at him.
Clay,
and this could clearly be Ahmaud Arbery. If the guy had fought back at all, Fetterman probably would have shot him.
Just also look at the way the media treated, for example, the Professor Gates. Remember this? I believe it was Professor Gates up at Harvard, because the cops are called on this guy. They were called. They didn't just, pick him out for no reason. They're called. They say there might be a break-in. They have a conversation with him. There is no arrest made. Nothing happens. And it was a national outcry of racism, and this is terrible. And, Obama is brought in to have the beer summit and all this stuff. It was a no harm, no foul situation. But those cops, initially people, those cops are so racist. Fetterman chased a random black guy with a shotgun because he heard some, party fireworks in the background. And this is just, we're all supposed to just forget about this? I don't know.
It's a big story. It's one of many reasons why he is completely unelectable.